5 red flags that prove your applicant is a nightmare tenant. If you're a landlord or property manager, one bad tenant can destroy your cash flow faster than a market crash. In this video, we're breaking down the 5 red flags that prove your applicant is a nightmare tenant, so you can avoid the biggest mistakes during tenant screening. Because here's what most investors don't realize: finding a tenant is easy. Finding a good tenant is where the real skill comes in. And if you get this wrong, it doesn't just cost you money, it costs you time, stress, and sometimes even your property condition. Let's break it all down step by step. Why this matters more than you think. Before we jump into the red flags, let's get one thing clear. Tenant screening is not just a formality. It is the single most important risk management tool you have as a landlord or property manager. Think about it like this. When you approve a tenant, you are essentially entering into a financial partnership with a complete stranger. You're trusting them to pay you thousands of dollars consistently, take care of your property, follow the lease agreement, and communicate when issues come up. And if they fail at any one of those, you're the one who pays the price. That's why experienced property managers spend more time rejecting tenants than approving them, because saying no is often what protects your investment. Now let's get into the red flags that separate great tenants from nightmare ones. Red flag #1. Inconsistent or unverifiable income. This is the most common mistake landlords make, and it's usually driven by urgency. You've got a vacancy, you want it filled, and someone comes along who seems like they can afford it. But when you start digging during tenant screening, things don't quite add up. Maybe their pay stubs look unclear. Their income fluctuates wildly. They avoid providing full documentation, or they give vague explanations about how they earn money. Here's the reality. If income is hard to verify, rent will be hard to collect. A professional property manager doesn't just take documents at face value. They verify everything by calling employers directly, requesting multiple months of pay history, reviewing tax returns for self-employed applicants, and checking consistency between bank deposits and stated income. Let's walk through a quick scenario. You have a property renting for $1,800 per month. An applicant claims they make $6,000 per month, which sounds great. But when you ask for proof, they only provide one pay stub, their bank statements don't match, and their employer contact goes straight to voicemail. That's not a maybe, that's a no. Because what usually happens next is predictable. Month 1, they pay rent. Month 2, they're late. And by month 3, the excuses start piling up. Now you're stuck dealing with collections, stress, and possibly eviction. Strong tenant screening eliminates this up front. Red flag #2. Poor communication patterns. This one is subtle but incredibly powerful. The way a tenant communicates before move-in is exactly how they'll communicate after move-in. If they're already slow to respond, ignoring questions, giving incomplete answers, or constantly rescheduling, that's not going to magically improve later. In fact, it usually gets worse. As a property manager, communication is your lifeline. You need tenants who respond quickly, respect your time, provide clear information, and handle issues responsibly. Now imagine the opposite. A tenant who doesn't answer when rent is due, avoids maintenance coordination, and only responds when pressured. That turns small problems into big ones. Here's a real-world example. You message a tenant about a small leak and get no response. 2 weeks later, that small leak becomes major water damage. Now, instead of a small repair, you're dealing with thousands in costs, all because of poor communication. This is why experienced property managers treat communication during tenant screening as a test. If they fail early, they don't get approved. Red flag #3. Negative or suspicious rental history. Rental history tells you everything if you know how to read it. A nightmare tenant almost always leaves a trail, and the key is knowing where to look. During tenant screening, you should contact previous landlords, verify addresses independently, check eviction records, and look for patterns in their move history. But bad tenants have learned how to game the system. They might list fake landlords, use friends as references, or skip over problematic properties entirely. So you have to go deeper. Instead of just asking if they were a good tenant, ask if they paid rent on time consistently, if they left the property in good condition, and if the landlord would rent to them again. That last question is critical because hesitation usually signals a problem. Now, look at patterns. If someone has moved every year, broken multiple leases, or has gaps in their rental history, That's not random, that's behavior, and behavior repeats. A strong property manager looks for stability because stable tenants stay longer, pay more consistently, and create fewer issues. Red flag #4. Credit tells a story. A lot of landlords misunderstand credit. It's not just about the score, it's about the story behind the score. During tenant screening, you want to understand how someone handles financial responsibility. A low credit score alone doesn't always mean rejection, but certain patterns should raise concern, such as multiple recent late payments, accounts in collections, unpaid rent or utility bills, and high credit utilization. These are indicators of financial stress, and financially stressed tenants are far more likely to fall behind on rent. Here's a scenario. You approve a tenant with poor credit because they say they're getting back on track. It sounds reasonable, but 2 months later they miss a payment, then another, and then they stop responding altogether. Now you're dealing with eviction. This is why property managers rely on data, not promises, because everyone sounds responsible during an application, but credit history shows what they actually do. Red flag #5. Urgency and pressure tactics. This one is extremely important and often overlooked. Nightmare tenants love urgency. They'll say they need to move in tomorrow, offer to pay extra for immediate approval, or ask to skip parts of the tenant screening process. This is not enthusiasm, it's strategy. They're trying to rush your process before you uncover problems. A professional property manager never skips steps, no matter how urgent the situation seems, because urgency is often a smokescreen. The truth is, good tenants plan ahead, while bad tenants react at the last minute. So when someone is pushing hard to move in immediately, you have to ask why, and more often than not, the answer isn't good. Red flag #6. Too good to be true. Sometimes the biggest problem isn't a bad applicant, it's a perfect one. They say all the right things, provide documents instantly, and even offer to pay multiple months up front. It feels ideal, but sometimes it's a setup. High-risk tenants and scammers know how to create polished applications, which is why verification matters more than presentation. Always cross-check documents, employment, identity, and rental history, because a smooth application doesn't guarantee a smooth tenancy. Red flag #7. Disrespect for the process. Pay attention to how applicants treat your process. If they complain about requirements, push back on standard checks, or act entitled, that's a preview of future behavior. A good tenant respects structure, while a bad tenant challenges it. And as a property manager, once you lose control of the process, everything becomes harder. The cost of ignoring these red flags. A nightmare tenant can cost you thousands in lost rent, property damage, legal fees, and months of stress and lost time. And most of it is preventable with strong tenant screening and the discipline to say no. Building a bulletproof screening process. If you want to avoid nightmare tenants consistently, you need a system. Every property manager should have clear income requirements, verified employment checks, full credit and background reports, rental history verification, and consistent approval criteria with no exceptions. Because the moment you start bending the rules is when problems begin. Final prospective tenant screening is not about being strict, it's about being smart. Every application carries risk, and your job is to minimize that risk by spotting red flags early. Because once a nightmare tenant is in your property, getting them out becomes a much bigger battle. If you want more content on tenant screening, real estate investing, and how to operate like a professional property manager, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss an update.